You are back. You are normal. This is Your Normal Podcast, and I'm your host, Blake Russell. This is a podcast where normal people speak about the usually unspoken. And for this episode, it's another person that reached out to me after I started releasing these podcasts, and it's somebody that I used to spend a lot of time with as a younger person. We went to the same high school and middle school. We grew up playing sports together. I don't think I'll let them, whenever I introduce them, I think it's been about 8 years since I probably last seen this person, somewhere around there. It's been a long time, and I was very excited that they reached out to me. This person has an incredible story, and I think they'll have a lot of insight to a lot of different things. So right now, I'd like to introduce Kevin Norris. Introduce yourself, buddy.
Hey, Blake. I'm Kevin Norris. I'm 32, currently residing in Springfield, Missouri. I've been here the past 7 years. Born in Alabama, raised in Jefferson City. That's where I call home, Holt Summit, Jefferson City area. Welder fabricator by trade, and that's just what pays the bills, and it's what I really enjoy. So,
hell yeah. Appreciate you introducing yourself, Kevin. And I want to, just like our other guest here on this podcast, I gave you a little homework assignment. I had you pick 5 words that encapsulate you as a person. I know that's probably a tall order. I'm going to start listing these off, and I just want you to speak to a little bit of them, or a little bit about each of them. And I'm not going to do it in any order. Okay.
yeah.
So let's start with stubborn. I like the honesty. Stubborn.
Yeah, stubborn. Yeah, so that goes back to when I was a little kid, not either not wanting to listen to my parents, or just having my own mindset of the best way to go about certain things, and not really listening to others who may have experienced it beforehand and had more insight on what the right way to go about certain things were. And yeah, that's just how I live my daily life. Is I'm very stubborn, and it's not necessarily my way or the highway, but it's hard for me to say no. At the same time, it's hard for me to say yes to a lot of things too. It's made up a big part of my life. Just just that attitude of maybe you're right, your way is not the right way, and I'll have to find it out myself. So
do you like, has being stubborn created any like difficulties in your relationships in your life?
Oh, absolutely. Every single one. And, when I was younger, obviously that was more of a burden than what it is now. I've grown past a lot of things that, say, when I was 18 to 20 to 25 years old, that I battled. I was more stuck in my ways, and I didn't communicate as well, or I didn't try to see the other person's side of things, and I would get angry or agitated about certain things. And older I've gotten, I've certainly feel like that's diminished some. But it's certainly taken a toll on a lot of relationships that I've had over the years, certainly.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely something to be strong in your convictions, but then, when it gets to a certain point that, and I'm not preaching to the choir here,
Yeah.
So I'm gonna move this next one. This next one I'm not surprised about in the least. Kevin sent me outdoorsy. I want to tell you, I remember, so my dad, like,
yeah.
My dad was the loud guy at all our baseball games, screaming in the
Yeah.
But my dad always spoke so highly of you, man. And I remember him saying that, like, he always envisioned you growing up and like having some job in the woods or something. I remember him explicitly saying that. But speak to that a little bit. Like, what do you like to do outside? Like, what does it bring? Does it bring you joy?
Yeah. So as a little boy, I was pretty well raised on a horse farm. My father had a horse farm. My mom lived in the city, so anytime we got to go out there, I just found a lot of joy in that. I got to go hunting as a young boy, and just the woods and the peace and the trees and the nature and the birds and just everything about it just gave me a lot of joy and peace and happiness. And as I grew older, that just really stuck with me. I had an uncle that would take me hunting, all different types of hunting. It would take me fishing. As simple as gardening. I love to garden. I love to mow, as weird as that might be. Anything I can do outside, I want to be out there, hunting is the majority of it. sitting in a tree stand and seeing the sunrise. In my opinion, there's nothing like it. Seeing the world awake, all the animals, and yeah. And in high school, I drove the big old pickup truck and camo, and I was just that outdoorsy guy. I don't want to say I'm a country boy or anything like that, but it's just something I thoroughly enjoy, and it's given me a lot of things to look forward to through the years. So that's just something that I really think encapsulate. If someone was to say what's something that Kevin thoroughly enjoys, they'll say, "Oh, hunting, fishing, outdoors."
Yeah, I haven't talked to you in probably close to a decade, and somebody asked me that, I'd be like, oh yeah, he likes to be outside and do
Yeah,
things outside.
yeah, yeah,
And it's interesting because I I also like the outside, but I like it in different ways. Like I like to go to the park and I like to hike and like see scenic stuff. I don't like I think it's probably because I wasn't raised
yeah,
in the hunting kind of mindset, and I feel like I wouldn't want to kill the animal. But
yeah,
I think it's just like I wasn't raised that way. But I also, when you said like you like mowing, I'm like, yeah, I like that. I like to weed eat.
yeah,
I like to do landscaping. And
yeah,
do you have a garden at your house or where you
yeah,
stay? Yeah.
yep,
What do you
yep.
grow?
I grow tomatoes, cucumbers, zucchini, peppers. I'm big into pickling right now, so I'll last year I got probably 60 of the little pickling cucumbers, and I slice those up and make my own recipe. And that's something that I feel I'm getting older, and who thought I'd be pickling cucumbers, and putting them. It's really enjoying, whenever I can grill out hamburgers and put them on my cheeseburger, and these are the pickles that I canned, and it's just something that we're getting older, so
Yeah, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, if you can believe it. I have my own podcast, and I listen to the Joe Rogan Experience, which I think a lot of
yeah,
people talk about. And he talks about hunting and like growing your own food and stuff, and how like when you eat it, how much more meaningful it is. And
oh yeah,
I think that that's an interesting thing. But we try to grow peppers out in our backyard, and Sam's dog Carly like
yeah,
pisses all over them all the time, like eats them.
yeah.
You can't.
That's probably not the best peppers to eat. They might be a little bit spicy. Yeah,
That's a city living, I guess.
yeah,
But it's all right. All right, we got a few other words here. I want to go with selfless. Can you speak to what you're thinking about when you wrote selfless?
yeah. So my fiance actually brought this to my attention. I was the last two words I was kind of grabbing for just trying to figure out words that I kind of describe me. And uh, that one came up just that I often put others before myself. Um, it's just something that I don't know if I've always been that way. For the most part, I'm a pretty quiet guy, and a lot of people get the wrong idea about me because of that. Like I'll go into somewhere and I'll be that quiet guy, and they think I'm standoffish or whatnot. But really, it's just me not wanting to be the center of attention. I don't want to be, the person that others look at for something. I'd rather just kind of hide in the back and let others have that whether I'm pushing them forward or I don't know what aspect it would be,
Mhm.
and it's just I want others to succeed before I do
Yeah.
in certain aspects. So
Do you like? I don't have all the love languages memorized, but like, are you like a giver of gifts? Do you like to say nice things to people? Like,
yeah,
what brings you joy?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So uh, the love languages, yeah. So one would be what is it, the giving or
Yeah.
the
I don't know
yeah,
what. Yeah.
the giver. So yeah, so let's think about Christmas right quick. Christmas, I love Christmas because I love giving gifts. I
Mhm.
don't care so much if I got them, but man, I love to make people happy. So if I can buy $100 worth of gifts and we are only supposed to spend 20 bucks on them, I'm
Mhm.
like, I just love that. I love making other people happy.
Mhm.
So that's where the selflessness I think comes in at. So
Yeah, I agree with the giving gifts at Christmas time. I Until the last few years, I never had a whole lot of money because I was going through
yeah.
grad school, and when I started making some money, and I was like, oh, I can give people stuff. Like I found a whole new joy in Christmas.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Mhm.
And I'm not trying to take away from the Christmas, what Christmas means or anything, but when we grew up pretty poor, and not to say my mom didn't give us everything that she could give us. But yeah, there were a lot of times that, we didn't get the finer things or we couldn't afford certain things. So now that I'm older and I can afford it myself, whether it be my mom or fiance or siblings or my nieces, like I just want to give them everything I can. My mom gets upset with us. Why did you spend so much money? You're only supposed to spend this much. And it's like, Mom, I'm taking care of y'all now.
Yeah.
Your son's got money in the bank. Well, it's on a credit card, but still. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's tight. I appreciate you sharing that part of yourself. I didn't know that about you, but I'm not surprised in the least either. So let's jump into this next one. I got a little story along with this one. You chose the word reliable, and when I look at people's list of words when I know them, I think everyone I've interviewed at least pretty like on some level. But when I try to think of like what do I think about like with our relationship and when I thought of reliable, do you remember? I don't know when this was, man. It was probably, I don't know. We were probably like between 20 and 23 years old or something. And my brother was living in Jefferson City at the time, for a small period of time. And it was winter. And we were like at the top of, I don't remember the name of the street, but it's the big hill that goes down to Vivian Field.
Yeah.
You remember this?
Oh yeah, I think so. Keep going.
So I'm driving with my brother, and it's like really terrible weather out. There's ice and stuff.
Yeah.
And trying to go down this hill real slow, and I start to lose control of the truck. And I'm like, I don't know. I did what you're supposed to do, where you don't just press on the brake, but I still just couldn't control it. And we went across the street. Luckily, there were no other cars. I hit the curb, and we went up over. And then when we went up over the curb, there's no guardrail. And then all that separated us was like a drop off of like 30, 40 feet down to these apartments. And somehow the car was like in this grass and the snow, and it like fishtailed, and then it just stopped. But then we like felt like we couldn't move. And I think, did I call you?
Yeah, I think so. I was either at the house or I was probably cruising the boulevard or something dumb. But
yeah. And I I'm a 20-year-old kid. I have no money, and I don't want to call my parents because my parents will freak out. And I was like, I'm gonna call Kevin. And Kevin, like in a moment's notice, came, and he had like straps and a hook and all the shit. And then I think Derek Odell showed up too, maybe.
Yeah, he was, I think he was with me.
Yeah. And you were like, we're just gonna have to pull it out. And I was like, I was all freaked out. And then Derek, like, you guys hooked it up, and then you drove my car home for me. So anyway, Kevin's a reliable guy. He came on a moment's notice. He saved me and my brother. But yeah, speak to that, Kevin. Like, what else?
So reliable to me is, if anybody was in a time of need, whether it's a stranded motorist or it's a neighbor needing help moving something, I just feel like I'm really that guy that someone can call. And if I say I'm going to be there in 20 minutes, I'm going to be there in 20 minutes, or I'll be in there in 15 minutes, ready to go. I don't know. I feel like everybody's has that. Maybe I'm a loss for words, but everybody has. Everybody is entitled to my word. So if my word's no good to myself, then why should you trust me? Why should you believe me? So I just try to help out anywhere I can. And if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do something. Now, if I'm shady about it, saying, I don't know, there's a good chance I'm probably ain't going to show up or I won't be there.
Yeah.
But I just try to be that guy that people can count on, instead of saying, oh, I called him and he says he's going to be here 20 minutes and 45 minutes later, he might show up or might not. I just want to be that dependable person that someone can count on. So I want to be reliable.
Yeah, man. And I think like, I don't know, it's a really wonderful quality that you have, because like shit like that, like that act of service that you did, like I'm gonna remember that till the day I die. Like I feel it's such a scary event, and then you came like that and got us out of there. So I appreciate it. I don't know if I'm sure I told you thank you that night.
I imagine we've spoke about it.
All right, let's get into this last one, and then I want to get into the meat of this conversation. Okay, so the last one you chose is believer.
Yeah, so believer, so I've got a tattoo on me that says believe.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of different people take that word and run with it how they may, whether that be believing in Christ or believing in the things that you do or how you do them. or what you're able to do. And that's kind of how when I say a believer, I believe anybody is fully capable of doing anything that they want to do. Whether, that's going to get your PhD, or if that's making a high school baseball team, or if you put your mind to it, you're going to be able to do it. If, so whenever I say I'm a believer, there's not many things in this world that I'd ever say no to. Like, no, I cannot do that. No, I can do it. It might not be the smartest decision for me, or it may take me so long to achieve that. But man, don't tell me I can't do it, because I will do it.
Is it, so you're saying that it's more like, when you say believer, it's more of a mindset, or like,
Yeah. Which I believe in God. But for me, what I mean by believer is just that I believe that you can do absolutely anything you can do, that you want to do, or that you put your mindset to.
It's like a personal will, mindset.
Yep. If you believe it, you're gonna do it. Plain and simple. It might take a week, might take 10 years, but you're gonna do it. So
it reminds me, and I've talked about it on a former podcast with Stephanie, but David Goggins. Don't know if you know who that is, Kevin, but
sounds familiar.
For anybody that doesn't know who that is, I'm gonna keep plugging David Goggins on these. He's like
was he the ex-military cat?
Yeah, he was a Navy SEAL.
Yeah. Yep.
Black gentleman. He was morbidly obese for a long time, and then he just went into this like, I'm going to control my mind now. And he has a whole bunch of trauma and stuff, but now he's like this cut up dude that runs ultra marathons, and he's an interesting specimen. But that's like his whole life is what you're talking about. It's like believing in personal will and stuff. So,
yeah. Yep.
All right, let's dive into the meat and bones of this thing, okay, Kevin? I mentioned that we hadn't talked in a long time. Can you just give me and people listening like a brief overview of what you've been up to the last decade of your life?
Shoot, yeah, last decade. I after high school, I left high school, had a scholarship to go play college baseball at St. Charles. Went there for a semester. Ended up not working out. First time away from home, just everything, kind of piled on. Moved back home. That's when me and you attended Lincoln together. In April of that year of 2008, I was in a motorcycle accident. That kind of took up 2 years of my life. I went back to school at Lincoln with you and Lucas Porter and the guys, and I ended up trying out play for the baseball team, made the baseball team, didn't make the grades that semester, so I actually got kicked out. So then, I wasn't allowed back in school, at least in Central Missouri. So I started working part-time jobs. Well, I did that for 2 years. That ended up running up. And I called my brother on a Sunday and said, "Hey, can I move to Springfield?" And he's like, "Absolutely." And that night I got online and applied to OTC here in Springfield, got accepted.
What is OTC, Kevin?
Ozark Technical College.
Okay.
It's a technical school.
Cool.
So moved down here on a Sunday, I found work on a Monday, started school on a Wednesday, doing nighttime classes. I was living with my brother. So without them, I wouldn't have been able to do any of this. But I worked all day at Bass Pro. I was unloading trucks, school all night. And that was just the repetitiveness. I had to have money because in those 2 years of being back home, I built bills and I had to pay for the bills. So I had to have a job, pay for food, gas, and then also a truck that I was paying on. And then, after that, I graduated from OTC in 2014, I believe, with my 2-year degree in welding technology. And then I used to build stainless steel pressure vessels. So like wine tanks, beer tanks, a lot of tanks that would go out to California, whether they're storage or whatnot. But and then 2 years ago, I got the opportunity to go take a weld test for a race car shop. We fabricate race cars and race car parts and just anything that kind of has to do with the racing world, the drag racing world. And that's where I'm at now. I build race car parts, and that's what I do.
Do you like it? We were talking about this before. Speak to what you like about it,
So I work with my hands, we played ball, so hand-eye coordination is big. I'm a TIG welder, so I right hand torch, left hand filler wire. And then the fabrication aspect, making things fit up how they're supposed to fit up, and seeing something from just, metal come into, form a race car, something that can go 200 miles plus, and save lives at the same time. So say if you're in a bad accident, this chromoly cage could potentially save your life. And I think it encompasses a lot of the things that I really enjoy, whether that be like the teamwork aspect of it. There's 6 of us at work, that all come together and build this one thing that the end goal is to go win races. And, I really enjoy it. It's something different every single day. So
and it's right up your alley from what I know about you, because you're into like the adventure and like that.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff. And it's so what you're saying is it fulfills you like on a like a tangible level, like you have the hand-eye stuff, and then also like there's like a purpose in it because there's like a safety measure, and then also there's you're getting a whole lot of different stuff.
Yeah, it's the mental. So a lot of math, got a lot of visual. You got to visualize, hey, if this bar goes here, where's my next bar going to go? Because all of these cages come with certifications. So you've got to build them in a certain way, in a certain style to meet certification. They all get stamped at the end of it. And that's not the only aspect. We build intercoolers and intakes, and there's a broad spectrum of things that we build for these cars. But yeah, it's just that all the different aspects. And I can go in on a Monday and do one thing, and on Tuesday I'm not doing that same thing. So that keeps my job exciting and non-monotonous. And then on the weekends we get to go out to the racetrack and hear those cars start up, and you feel it in your chest. And it's, if you've ever been to a NASCAR race or a drag strip, those guys know what I'm talking about. It's something that you feel down in you, and it lights you up.
Yeah, I've never been to a NASCAR event or anything like that, but there's I remember I was dating a girl, I'm not going to say her name on here, but I was dating a girl back in our early 20s. You might know better than me. I'm going to butcher all this, but isn't there like some form of racing in like mid-Missouri that's more amateur, like people build their own car, like out in Fulton and stuff? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Like a dirt track car?
Dirt track.
Yeah, dirt track. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a dirt track, those are pretty wild too. That if you go out there, that'll get in your blood too. Those guys are pretty nutty. They swing their cars out sideways, and we're the straight line racers.
Okay.
That you sit on starting line and you give her hell, and go as fast as you can through the 1/8 or 1/4 mile, and after that, that's it. Depending on how fast your car is, you might have a 3.5-second car in the 1/8, or you might have a 14-second car in the 1/4. That's pretty darn slow, but it's a rush. If you ever wanted to see how fast your car can go in a 1/4 mile without getting a ticket, go to a drag strip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And the reason I brought up that dirt track racing is because I remember having somewhat of the feeling. I don't know anything about cars. We were talking about this before we started. But I remember having that feeling to some degree because I remember just watching them do these crazy maneuvers, and I was just like, these guys are fucking crazy. But it got me going. Like, it's competitive. I don't know what it was, but you're right. It's a feeling within you. But Kevin, I want to back up because I asked you like what you've been up to for the last 10 years, and you had mentioned like moving to Springfield, and you described very well like you were kind of like, I don't want to say you were like spinning your rudders, but like you had gone to school, that didn't work out, then you were working jobs, and you're like, And I've talked about on a previous podcast that hasn't aired yet, with one of our guests, Tammy. Like I find joy, like because I'm a therapist, and I find joy in like helping people at like pivotal points in their life, like when they're like at a crossroads. When you think about that time where you said you called up your brother and you were like, hey man, can I move it? Do you remember what went into that decision? Because that's a big decision to be like, I need to.
Yeah.
So
it was scary.
Can you speak to that a little bit? Like what you remember from it?
Yeah. I got to that point because I changed my major twice. I had no vision of what, where I was going, what I was doing. And I knew I love Jefferson City. I love Central Missouri, but I knew I had to get out of there. I knew that whatever was there wasn't for me. Whether that was a park and rec manager or a high school baseball coach, or it just wasn't going to happen in Jeff City.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew my brother was down here in Springfield. He had moved down here, I don't know, 7, 8 years prior.
Mm-hmm.
And I might have even texted him. I don't even, not even certain, but I wanted to get clarification that I could live with them before I started applying and whatnot, because I wasn't just going to come down here and move. My other siblings didn't graduate college. Now, after the accident, that mindset, that stubbornness of, oh, I'm going to do this, even going back to playing college baseball after the accident, doctors say no, I say, watch this.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to go to school. I wanted to finish school. I had all these hours and all these student loans for nothing.
Yeah.
I was like, D, can I come down? Here's the plan. He's like, yeah, you're more than welcome. That's crazy, but yeah, you can come down.
Mm-hmm.
So I moved my bed down on a rainy Sunday. Um, Stayed with them for, I don't know, 6 to 8 months. I ended up getting an apartment, and it was a super scary. I cried the day I left Jeff City.
Mm-hmm.
I told my mom the day I left, I said, I'll be back. Told all my friends, told Justin Farr, I told everybody, hey, I'll be back.
Mm-hmm.
And ain't been back.
Yeah. It's I think what you're speaking about, like that feeling of like, this isn't for me, and not being able to really say why fully. Like, I think a lot of people have that feeling a lot of time, and some people don't have, I don't know if it's the courage or the set of circumstances to be able to make that leap. And I think that the way you just kind of were like, I'm getting out of here, and you took your bed and you went, I think that was a courageous act. And I mean, it's led to a lot of good things. Is that where you met your fiance?
No, so my fiance is actually from California, Missouri. She graduated from Jefferson City. That was a crazy aspect in itself. She hit me up on Facebook and said, "Hey, boy, hey," and no, no, it didn't happen quite like that. But yeah, I was living in Springfield, and she was in Jeff City, and we started talking, and the rest is history. But I think from that day forward, that's what gave me the cojones to do everything that I've done since that day, to know, to have the mindset that if I try this, there's a hot chance that it might work out, and I bet on myself a ton, everything I do, I bet on myself, whether that was school or the job with the new fabrication job. I didn't know anything about cages, but I knew I could weld. And so I bet on myself. I told them, I said, look, I'll show up every day on time. I'll be here. You train me how you want things done. And, and it's all worked out. So yeah. I think that decision to move to Springfield was the first. I certainly, I know that was the first major decision of my life that I made on my own, and it all worked out, or I made it work out.
Yeah. And I think it shows that people are able to adapt to new things. And it just takes, I keep saying courage, but it's not always courage. It just takes like the initiative to like shift course. And once you do, like, you pick up the pieces and you figure it out. But you've mentioned, before we get into I'm going to call it like the main topic, or a major topic, you've mentioned an accident a couple times in speaking. I don't want to fully dive into that yet, but I know, I'm sure people listening to this are like, what accident? We're going to talk about it. But before we do that, I just want to like give people a little bit of insight into how, I mean, obviously we're from the same town, with the same school. We've been kind of talking about it a little bit, but I wanted to talk about like a major component of our relationship growing up was playing sports together. We played football and we played baseball together. I just want to know like what your memory is of playing sports in Jefferson City, and like just your thoughts about that.
My experiences weren't always good. There's a lot of times that I gave up. I want to quit. There's a lot of times that I would go to a coach and be like, "Hey, I'm not going to do this next year. Like, I'm over it," or I want to concentrate on certain things. Or, and because of those experiences, I think later, in high school, when I should have really been, say, in the weight room, lifting weights and being more enthusiastic about the goals that everybody else had that I didn't really have. I wanted to go out fishing, and I didn't have my mind in the right mindset, because I don't think it meant to me as much as it meant to others. Or I was selfish in thinking, oh, I'm good enough. I don't need the weight room, or I don't need this. And from an early time, So I was held back in first grade. So I was always older.
Mhm.
So whenever I was playing sports, I always got bumped up to the bigger kids class, But
Yeah.
then whenever organized sports started school, now I'm getting bumped down with the younger kids, which suited me more. I'm not that much older than everybody we graduated with. But my abilities might have been 6 months, more advanced, or a year more advanced than some. So I was always looked at as the bigger, taller, faster kid.
Mhm.
But with having that title, it kind of led to more pressure or more expectations, and at least until organized sports started.
Mhm.
But if it wasn't for organized sports, I probably wouldn't be alive today. So
Yeah.
I tip my hat to all the coaches that I've had, which I've had great coaches. I've had some real asshole coaches. I've had coaches that made me come crying off the field because I was so pissed off.
Mhm.
But I've also had coaches that held me after the last game of the year. So um, it's an up and down thing, with all the athletics surrounding Jefferson City.
Yeah, I can't express enough how you were talking about like that it wasn't always a great experience, and how like the way you talked about it, it was kind of like this was good, this was bad, this was good, and I had a similar experience, and I remember, and I've talked about it on other podcasts, but I I want to talk about like what my memory of you like as an athlete growing up. I remember in seventh grade, I didn't realize that you were older. Now that I think maybe I knew that, but now it's like coming back to me because I remember in seventh grade you were on the gold team. It's crazy,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember because
Gold.
I know what team you're on. Kevin
Yeah.
was like all over the field, man. Like you're not speaking enough about how good of an athlete you are. And I know it's like I'm not trying to toot your horn. Kevin was a really, really wonderful athlete. And it makes sense now that you were probably like 6 years or 6 months, a year developmentally beyond other kids.
Yeah.
Um, but you had told me before we started this that there was a period where you wanted to focus entirely on baseball and you wanted to put away football. Can you speak to that a little bit and like how you came back to like wanting to do that?
Yeah. So after my eighth grade football year, after getting beat up and face thrown in the mud, I decided that coming into high school, I wanted to really concentrate on baseball.
Mhm.
I loved baseball. I feel like I was better at football, but I loved baseball. My dad played minor league ball, and I think that was always the idea of where I would take my life would be baseball. So yeah, after eighth grade year, I wasn't going to play football, and everybody went out for 2 days. And in Jefferson City, that's when the two middle schools meet, is freshman year. And TJ was really good. Lewis and Clark, we were pretty good. So everybody in the high school was thinking, "Wow, this freshman class is going to be something special." Well, the head baseball coach at the time was actually a freshman football coach, also. Well, whenever he realized I wasn't out there and I was going to concentrate on baseball, he gives me a call and says, "Hey, what the heck? Why aren't you out here?" And I was like, "Coach, I'm all yours for the baseball team. I'm trying to be varsity as a freshman." And uh, so he talked me into actually coming out and playing. And I have a lot of regret with that because I feel like I may have done my teammates some disservice, that maybe my heart and my my passion for the sport wasn't in it as deep as others.
Mhm.
And that, we talked about going summer tryouts and workouts and stuff. I didn't, while they're there lifting, I'm out fishing, I'm out swimming, it's just, I found more joy in that. And so I battled that, how good could I have been if I really gave it my all or gave my teammates the best that I could be, and
Mhm.
so
So you're speaking about, just so I understand, you're saying that there's like some regrets and that you didn't stay the course with like just focusing on baseball because you think you could have excelled even more as a baseball player.
yeah, or whenever I'm playing a certain sport, just giving it my unfocused or
Mhm.
my focused,
Oh,
undivided
yeah.
attention, to where, hey, if I'm in football season, I'm giving it my all. If I'm on baseball season, I'm giving it my all. Instead, I had a lot of flurries in my head of other things that I wanted to do. And
Yeah.
but yeah, I've dealt with that my whole life. A lot of people call it being burnt out. You know, you know the feeling. You go in and play summer ball, play 60 to 80 games of summer ball, and then you go right into football, and then you go right into winter workouts for baseball and spring. It's just like you don't have a break, and I enjoyed a lot of things outside of sports, so that's what kind of drew me to not being the best I probably could have been.
Sure. Yeah, it's an interesting you're speaking to like a high school athlete that has like a potentially a college level talent level, like, well, not even just a high school athlete, a dual sport or more athlete, like the demands that it takes on a young person, like it's almost like kind of nuts, like, because you're
Oh, yeah.
right, like it's like a full-time job to go to school, then you practice, then you play the games, and then you're in the summer you're working out and playing all these, and it just, you never stop. It's like a 60-hour work week job that never stops for like 4 years.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
I want to ask you, uh do you play sports now? Like, because it was such a huge part of our life. Like the last few years, I don't play any sports. I played volleyball
Yeah.
recreationally, but like I don't even count that because it's people are just
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
are you active now?
I not so much anymore. The past probably 3 to 4 years, I haven't done
Mhm.
anything. I haven't hardly thrown a ball.
Yeah.
Uh, Before that, yeah, beer drinking league, softball, you know, I'd try to play that. And you know, I try to run and do some stuff, but yeah, as far as organized or just having friends out and doing stuff, you know, we used to go to the school and play football, you know, flag football or something. Um, or me and Andy Pack used to play Indian ball all the time. Him and Woody, uh, we just don't do that anymore, you know. But I also I attest that to lives, you know. We all kind of grew up and grew out, and
Mhm.
you know, we're all doing different things, and sometimes there's just not enough time or will to
Mhm.
want to do it. And I think when you're younger, there's that outlook, there's that dream of, oh, I'm gonna go do this, or I'm gonna go compete here, or I'm gonna be in front of these people. When you get older, it's like, nah, I'm just doing it because
Yeah.
I want to, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm here right now, and I'm gonna do this because yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then, you know, living down here, I don't know hardly anybody.
Mhm.
So it's hard to get on organized sports or go play a volleyball game or a softball game because I just don't have that many connections. So
Yeah, I'm in a similar position up here. I don't, at least I mean, the people I do know, like it's not a part of who they are. Like that's just not their interest. So then I just don't do it. But I mean, you find other interests and you just adapt, like we were talking about, and you move on.
yeah.
I want to transition, Kevin. I want to. You mentioned that you kind of alluded to sports maybe saving your life, and we've mentioned the accident, and that's kind of what I want to get into now. And I don't. I'm gonna tell you what I think you meant about sports saving your life, and then tell me if I screwed up. But way I understood it, like we were in pretty good shape when we were in high school playing sports because of all the demands, like the practices and lifting weights and the running. And I know that in your experience with it was a motorcycle accident, and I'm gonna give you all the opportunity to talk about this. But I know that like as far as I remember, the doctors told you that like you being in good shape probably saved your life. But the way I remember it, was I was a freshman in college, and I woke up to like a bunch of text messages and phone calls and shit. And I remember, I think it was maybe Aubrey Moss. That's a girl we went to high school with. I had a voicemail that was like, Kevin got in a really bad accident. He got life flighted. And I was like half asleep. I didn't understand what was happening. And then like as the day kind of developed, I realized you were like potentially going to pass away. Um,
Yeah.
and you got life flighted to St. Louis, and I was living in Kansas City at the time. I got my car, and I went to St. Louis, and like there was a bunch of people there that cared about you. And I remember talking to you, and you were not a conscious person at that time. But can you just speak about like tell the people that are listening like what happened? What do you remember? What have you been since told? Just speak about your experience, because this is truly one of the most remarkable things that I've ever heard anybody enduring. So speak about that, Kevin. Go ahead, man.
Yeah. So April 29th, 2008. It was a nice spring evening. I was actually going to see a fellow athlete of ours who graduated a year before us. He was getting a tattoo in Jeff City. So me and a buddy were going to go watch him get this tattoo. So we hop on our bikes and we start heading down old 50, the outer road there by the mall, and there's a big old S turn. Well, we come around the S turn, and I guess when you ride motorcycles, you ride staggered. So one guy shoulder, one guy center line.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was in front and I was running center line. Well, when we ran that corner sharp turn, for anybody who knows Jefferson City in that area, it's a sharp S turn. Well, there's a car in my lane. I hit the car head on. I kind of bounced off him. My buddy, perfect timing with his bike, split me in half, ran me right over my chest. They say I laid there face down with my boots up in the air. And they, everybody thought, oh gosh, he broke his ankles. Like, that ain't no good. It was a gruesome scene.
Mm-hmm.
When really my ankles were fine. My boots just got twisted. Yeah, the ambulance came and they said, he's not going to make it. We need to get life flight here. They picked me up at the church, life flighted me to Columbia for the night. Columbia decided that they could not treat my injuries, that I needed to go to Barnes in St. Louis. So at like 5 a.m. the next morning, I left Columbia, went to St. Louis, spent 2 months in a coma. I had a heart surgery. I broke my back, spleen and gallbladder removed, traumatic brain injury. The list goes on. It was remarkable. The doctors came into that waiting room that I think you're mentioning and kind of told everybody he's breath to breath, like told the family, y'all need to call everybody because he might not be here. So after 2 months of that, so at the first part, I was in a coma. After that, I was in an induced coma. So they start giving you medicine once they think that you're going to be all right, to bring you out of that. That's a really slow process. I don't remember anything from the accident. I couldn't tell you what I was thinking, what I was doing, where I was going, just from what others tell me. Went to rehab for 2.5 weeks, got sick again, went back to the university, and I told them I couldn't go back to rehab. I just couldn't do it. I had to learn how to walk, talk, remember, they would say the 5 words, red, yellow, green, pink,
Mm-hmm.
and then talk to me, ask how my day was. And then they'd say, hey, what was that first color I told you to remember? And, I'd just be there like I just had no idea.
Yeah.
And, over time that got better. And I was actually in school. I was at school at Lincoln whenever the accident was happening. So that whole year of education got wiped out. It wouldn't allow me back for 2 more years. But yeah, that was, so after that, I came home, and so when I say I'm stubborn, this is kind of a story. I had Lucas Porter there. Little Josh Ferguson was there. Everybody had come whenever I was coming home from the hospital, and there was a motorcycle out front of the house, and I told everybody, I was like, hey, y'all gotta get me on that thing. And I hopped on that bike and took off. It's one of those deals where something takes you down in life, and I wasn't going to let that thing, control me or, have this last memory of me on this motorcycle and almost dying. So hopped up on that sucker and rode away in the sunset, came back, my mom's crying. And it was crazy because I couldn't hardly walk. So I had to have everybody lift me onto the bike and lift me off. I was 205 when I was in the accident. I weighed 128. I walked home. So, yeah, crazy. Doctors say, yeah, there's no reason why I'm here, especially for so I tore my aortic arch in the accident, which you're pretty well supposed to bleed out immediately. And I don't know if it was just the way I was laying or what had happened, but they saved my life. There's no other way around it. I'm not supposed to be here, but I am. So
yeah, man. And that was an amazing recount of your experience. And I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of questions that came up when you were sharing that, and I hope that's cool. I know you said it was.
Absolutely, man.
So once we get into this thing, it can change. So, were the majorities of your injuries that you know of now is it from being ran over?
Yeah. So the traumatic brain injury was from the head-on collision. If you saw the car in the pictures, it's a big old dent. My helmet, I actually cracked, the helmet cracked, and I still have a face shield from the helmet. But the helmet was cracked where they didn't even really have to pull it off me. They had to like part it off of me. And everything else was internal. It was all internal. So looking from me on the outside, I had a little bit of road rash, on my knees and my elbows. I was riding with blue jeans and and boots. But looking at me, you would have never known. And it was all internal, everything was ruptured. My heart was bleeding. It was bad news. So
yeah, I don't know anything about medical anything, but I mean, it just defies logic that you could be ran over. Was it your chest or was it your midsection?
No, it was my chest. So I got 13 broken ribs. I think he split me right at my chest, so right over my heart, in which ruptured my aorta, in which I have a stent, in which they go through your groin in some cases to place that stent. So I've got what looks like a big old water hose in my chest that where that tear was. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not medical, a wizard by any means. I just know from what my mom and everybody has told me and what doctors tell me that there's no real good reason. Like most of the time when this happens, a lot of times it's in older patients. Say if they fall because their arteries aren't as strong as, say, a young person's, when they fall, they could rupture and they bleed out immediately. They're talking like 30 seconds minimum. And for me, I don't know why or how, or I don't know. I don't think anybody can explain it. It was a big thing afterwards. Everybody was talking about, well, this is going to be a new writing in the medical journal, on how to treat this case if this was to happen again, because
wow,
this is the first that we've ever seen this, kind of happen. So
does that part of it, like, do you think about that ever? Is that something you actively think about, like the how the hell did I survive this? Is it something that, like, or is it not? Is it like you just look at it through like I'm just happy to be
it's like I have no idea, so I don't dwell on it, or I don't try to chase the reason why. I believe in God, but yeah, I've still not come to a conclusion on as to why or how, or that I think the biggest intriguing thing for me is how. How was I laying? How was I able to, or how was my body able to configure itself to where I wouldn't bleed out? And I had drain tubes for like a ton of weeks, and I have scars from them still. And how the doctors, like, it's mind-boggling to me how these doctors were able to take this lifeless body and know, hey, this is going on, we need to have them in. Because my heart surgery wasn't the first surgery that they did. They didn't know I had a broken back until I got to St. Louis, actually. So whether they're flipping me on tables or whatnot, they have no idea that my back is completely broke. They just knew I had internal bleeding. Both lungs were collapsed. So they knew that I was in a bad shape. And it's a miracle. I don't know how they do it or how it's mind-boggling.
I have so many thoughts, Kevin. So it's crazy. If you ever needed to like tell somebody how bad an injury was, it would be by saying like the broken back was like a secondary concern.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like they didn't even know.
Yeah.
But what I was thinking, I have two thoughts, and I want to make sure I ask these questions. I'm going to ask them both, and then you can talk about whichever one first. I just want to get them out before I forget. Okay. So one of the things is like you were talking about, like, I don't know how the doctors like were able to like essentially save my life. And then when I heard you say that, it was like so many little things had to go right, like every step of the way for us to be having this conversation. Yeah. So the first question is, when you think back, like, have you stayed in contact with any of the doctors? Do you know any of the doctors by name? And like how much like appreciation do you have for them? And then two, you talked about believing in God. I wanted to know if God is something that you've always believed in, and if it is, then did this experience like increase your faith or increase like um, your faith in God?
Yeah, so I'll just try to answer the first one first, if I
Yeah,
can remember what you had said.
yeah. Asking about doctors and like how
Yeah,
everything. Yeah.
so since I was in a coma, I didn't really have that interaction with the doctors as my parents or family did.
Mhm.
Even friends, they got to know these guys pretty well, and their shifts and how they operated and the things that they cared about. And I didn't have that opportunity. So the only doctor that I've had a relationship was Dr. Garrity, which is the heart surgeon that performed my heart surgery. I don't know. I have met, incredibly enough, I've met EMTs that were on the scene that night, and that's crazy. That's super cool. It was by complete accident in Jefferson City one night.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it was, but I've reached out to Dr. Garrity, which I told you earlier, I had to go back in and have a procedure done last fall uh, for an IVC filter that was supposed to be removed, and 11 years later, it's still in me. So they had to take me back up to Barnes and do this procedure. So Dr. Garrity is the only one that I've stayed in formal contact with. Everybody else in the world of medicine, there's in a 2-month span, there might be a lot of people that come and go, whether they're put on different floors or they have different things that, once I'm going to be okay, they kind of shift their focus from me to others. And so it's a large rotation, but Barnes Jewish is like incredible place. The people, there's a lot of folks that smell great up there. There's a lot of techs that will move you from like room to room, or to, if you're getting an x-ray, they'll take you from your room and down to the x-ray machine. I remember these guys were the best smelling guys that I had ever smelled. I hadn't smelled for two months, and these guys wearing cologne would be wheeling me through these hallways, and they just smelled great. But the second aspect to the question was about God. My mom tried to raise us in church. We were hellions. She couldn't do it as a single mom.
Okay.
I've always believed, but I've always had a lot of questions.
Mhm.
And to say that this accident brought me closer or further away, I can't answer that, just because I've never given it that much thought.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, well, there's a reason why you're here. Well, yeah, I do firmly believe that.
Mhm.
But then, I that's something I fight with a lot, because I've never really dived deep into why or how, or the doctors, have told me if I wasn't in the shape I was in, I would have been toast.
Mhm.
So I can't answer that question. I don't know.
It's a hard question.
It's a tough one. Yeah, because
Yeah.
there's, my deal is why.
Mhm.
And someone can read scriptures to me all day long and say, well, this is why.
Mhm.
And it's like, yeah, but why? Like,
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah.
why is always there for me. And so I'll probably live with that for the rest of my life, and hopefully someday I'll get to the bottom of it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, that's a super interesting response to that question. Like it's you're saying that like you have faith in like that, there's probably a reason, but even though you had this like experience that the majority of people have never experienced, you still have some of the questions that you had before. And so like you're not getting any closure on like the why it happened or why you're here. And it almost sounds like it's almost too much to even like think
yeah,
about. So you're just like, nah,
yeah,
I'll just keep living. Like,
yeah. I just keep chugging, and
yeah.
kind of the motto that I've gone through lately is, when my time comes, it comes, and I won't have to wonder why or when then. And
Mhm.
I'll wake up every morning and be grateful that I get to go to work, and that be that,
Mhm.
and the rest will follow. I try to take care of myself and control the things that I can control. But
Mhm.
after that, it's in someone else's hands. So
Yeah, I want to ask you one last question about this, Kevin. And answer it how you will, as much or as little as you'd like. Because I remember I have this email structure, and some people email me and some people reach out other ways with this podcast. And in the email, I don't remember exactly what you said, but I'm going to paraphrase. It was like essentially like you don't talk about this a lot, I think is what you said. And like,
Yeah.
can you speak to one, like why don't you like, or not why don't you like, why do you like kind of keep it close to the chest? Why don't you talk about it as much? And then two, like why did you decide to come on here and talk about it?
Yeah. I wouldn't say I'm very open about it. A
Yeah.
lot of people, you see me walking down the street, they have no idea until I take my shirt off and go skinny dipping or something. They have no idea that I'm covered in scars. And after the accident, they wanted me to go see counseling and therapists, which I've done at other points in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like sometimes, and it might just be the people. I've heard you speak about different therapists and different people not living up to their job expectations, or maybe what we as individuals would like to get out of a session.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that is that I don't remember so much about the accident. So had I remembered more, I feel like I would have more impact on my daily living as to how I would live my life. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Going back to play college ball, I went up to see Dr. Garrity to get him to sign the paper. He said, "No way, Jose." And since I didn't remember that, I wasn't the family members that had to live through that. I was like, watch this. I went to the university to Lincoln, and I had one of the girls do it for me. She had no idea. She didn't want to see my shirt off. She checked for scoliosis, made sure I could do this, do that. And she signed the paper.
Yeah.
And so I went back to play college baseball when if I was to slide into first base or get hit by a pitch one time in the chest, okay, it's done. Like I'm done. My stent will rupture and I'm done. But because I wasn't awake in that situation, I don't know. I have a different mindset about it.
Mm-hmm.
So when it goes to talking about the accident, I'm very open about it. I get emotional about it. But besides my close friends, not many people know about it. It's not something that I feel like I want to draw attention to myself or say, "Hey, I'm struggling with this today. My back hurts." And you're telling me that your back hurts and all you did was sleep on it wrong. Like,
Mm-hmm.
don't give me that. I don't look for any attention. But what was the other aspect of the question?
You pretty much covered it. I was asking about like that you didn't talk. Oh, and then why did you decide to come on and talk about it so publicly?
So yeah, I wrote you because I watched the first couple of podcasts. I was like, man, these stories are crazy. I learned things about people that I've known for years that I had never known,
Mm-hmm.
and it was super interesting. A lot of the people who are near and dear to the Facebook world or on my friends list, they see me post about the accident probably once a year or someone say something about it. And I've had the news do a couple deals on it, but for everybody who doesn't know me personally, for them to hear a story, and just through the past 12 years, of strangers meeting me and hearing the story and the impact I could give them as to, wow, you went through this and you're doing this now, like,
Mm-hmm.
holy cow, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like you had the outlet, the avenue, and someone could get on your podcast and affect me in my mind of thinking or my thought process, or have question certain things. I could do the same for them, or they could hear me and be like, man, I have a story just like that, or some aspect of this interview will impact them in a way that will relate to their own life.
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate you having a willingness to come on. I think I said that at the beginning, but I think it like I can't even process like that we're having this conversation because of everything you've been through and like how much time's gone by, and I just think it's a wonderful thing, and I'm happy it's happening.
Yeah.
And to speak more about like one thing I've been really pleased with about starting this, it's like I had an idea in my mind of like what I wanted this to be and what I thought it would be. And like it is that way in a lot of ways. But then there's things that like people reach out to me about like certain parts of interviews. They're like, oh man, like this. And I'll be like, I didn't even think that, but it's like affecting people in ways I could have never imagined. And that's a really cool thing. And I think a lot of people are gonna get that out of this conversation too. I really do.
No, I hope so. I hope
Mhm.
they, if nothing else, they gain confidence in whatever aspect of life it is, and
Mhm.
say, dang, if he can do that, I can do this, or I'll try that, or
Yeah,
when
because
you meet someone, I think you're only scratching the surface. You see their outer appearance, but you have no idea what Blake's about. What he cares about, his troubles in the past, or the obstacles he's faced, and then so this is allowing others to hear and be like, man, there are other people out there that are like me or have faced this same deal with me, and I didn't know what I was going to do after high school either for 5 years. And, everybody else has got babies and marriage, and I'm 32 and I don't have that. Like, what's wrong? And
yeah.
that's not the case.
People are I don't remember where I heard it or if somebody wrote about it or what, but it stuck with me. Somebody said people are onions, and I was like, what the fuck does that mean? But what they're talking about is like we just have these layers, man. And like this is you, and then the more and more you start to peel the layers, like the more you get to like the shit that we're talking about. And it's interesting that you're talking about that. Like people have these different versions of themselves, and when you cut through all the stuff, like people are really, really interesting. We're more similar than we're not.
Yeah.
I think we're getting close to like my time here. I wanted to ask you though, like, so you're living in Springfield, you're engaged, right?
I'm engaged. Yep. Getting married in October of this year.
Congrats. That's
Thank you.
great. Do you have any pets?
I've got 2 pets. Yeah, I've got a 2-year-old Australian Shepherd, and then the fiance got me a pit bull for Christmas this past year.
What's the pit bull's name?
Luna.
Luna. Nice.
Yeah, Luna and Bella. They're both full-blooded crazies.
They're both girls, right?
Yeah, both girls. So our house was broken into last year or 2 years ago, and Bella was actually given to us by a fellow member of the community we live in, and she felt like we needed her, and she's been great ever since. Protection, and she's a great companion. So it's really all worked out. And then the pit bull, I've always wanted a pit bull. Everybody has this mindset of pit bulls of being terrible, and even my own family has said that. And I was like, I want a pit bull. It's one dog I've never owned the breed, but I've always wanted to. So Taylor got on and found a rescue, and so we got a little puppy and a little girl.
How's it working out? Super sweet.
It's really good. She's I don't know how we get so lucky. She's like the most chill puppy. She's super smart. She's kennel trained. She knows, go in and out. And she's only, I think she's 4 months old. So she's still pretty tiny, still pretty crazy, but she's super easygoing. Would rather cuddle than go outside and play in the mud. So I like that. I like the older we get, I'm not looking for a dog to run with. I'm looking for a dog to just sit there and give me company. Put her in my lap and be done.
Yeah, that's why I love my dog Willow. But then if I want her to be active, I can go outside and it's best of both worlds. I have 2 girl dogs too. I've always liked girl dogs. I don't know why. I think it's just I grew up with girl dogs.
The females are a lot more protective. So males will want to roam and kind of check out. Females are very, very protective and wanting to be like more of a companion. They want to be close by your side, and that's I love my 2 girls. They're
It's interesting you say that because Sam, she has a pit bull. Well, we have a pit bull now together. But that was her dog before we started dating years back. And her name's Carly, and she has a really troubled past, and like she still has some problems. She's kind of scared. She's just like baseline scared all the time. But she's one of the sweetest dogs, most loving dogs. And I'm with you that pit bulls get a bad rep. But she's super protective too. Like if we go in the yard, she just like scans or she just walks along the perimeter and like checks for all the animals and like and so I was thinking about getting a security system when I bought my house, and I was like, I don't need one. Like Carly would tear somebody up.
It's great. You come onto our property and you see an all black German Shepherd, and then you see this pit bull. It's like I'll take my chances some other day. So.
Pass. Kevin, I just want to ask you, like I've asked other people this, and answer it however you want, but like you seem to be in a pretty good place, man. And I'm happy to see that. But like next 5-10 years, what do you want out of your life? Like what do you see moving forward for
Shoot.
yourself?
Let's see. Next 5 to 10, I mean, I'd like to pay off some debt, some student loan debt, get my life more in shape in that aspect. I want to have kids. I'm getting married, and as a young guy, I always wanted kids and wanted that companionship, and the housing and the jobs kind of went second. I just always wanted kids. So hopefully that's in the menu for the next 2 years or so. I'd like to buy more land. I'm on 10 acres now. I want probably 30 to 40. I want a bigger house, all the things that a lot of people want. But I think it's a doable deal in the next 5 to 10 years.
I think that I hope you get whatever you want, man.
I
And
appreciate that, Blake.
yeah, and I think you will. I think you're in a good position to do that, and I think you'll be a great dad. And I hope that for you, man. So any final thoughts before we end this thing? Do you have any parting words, anything at all? If you don't, that's cool too.
In words, believe in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Plain and simple.
I'm down. Kevin, I appreciate you coming on. I'm not going to end the call. I'm going to stop recording. So make sure you say for everybody that listened, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I've been releasing these things on Mondays every week. So make sure you're following the page, following the Spotify, doing all the things. Appreciate you guys being here. Take it easy.